Hello, everybody, and after 6 teams run a bye the previous week, this week we have a full slate of 16 games for week 15 of the NFL. I went 10-3 last week with my predictions, so here come week 15 predictions for the full slate of games. Before we dive into it, I want to quickly say if you are new, subscribe, be greatly appreciated. Leave a like while you're at it as well, and comment down below any upsets you have this week. To jump right into it, Thursday Night Football, the Los Angeles Rams at 7-6 make the trip to Santa Clara. They play the 6-7 San Francisco 49ers, and the 49ers are favored by 2.5 in this game. The Niners being so banged up as they are, it is a good thing that they got that dominant win against Chicago the previous week, but the thing is, it was against Chicago, a Bears team who has just been heartbroken this season so many times. They've what feels like has been checked out of this season. Eberflus was fired, Thomas Brown was the interim and is the interim, and tried to step in last game, but just the offense wasn't going great. Defense as a whole took a massive step back, and this Niners team got a bit of momentum. But on the flip side, the Rams also got a bit of momentum. That win against Buffalo was a massive, massive win, putting up great numbers. Defense didn't play really that great, but the offense is what really stood out. This should be a fun game on Thursday Night Football, a short week. Obviously, the Niners are being leaned towards the favorite because they had the easier game on Sunday. But I do think that the Rams are going to be the better team. I have the Rams to win, and I think their defense is going to show up a bit more in this game. That was a very uncharacteristic performance against an MVP last week against Josh Allen. And their offense is still a really, really good offense, and this 49ers defense has been struggling at times this season against higher tiered offenses. It's against Chicago the previous week. I'm not putting too much weight into it unless we see the defense play that well again this week. So I am going to go with the Los Angeles Rams to win this one. Next up, the 12-1 Kansas City Chiefs and 4-point favorites make the trip to Cleveland, who are 3-12. Cleveland is a weird team this season, especially since getting Jameis Winston under center. They've had some really close games and some really good games, but for some reason, they still can't find a way to finish the job done in games, and part of it is because Jameis Winston is throwing a lot of picks, but that's who Jameis Winston is. Meanwhile, the Chiefs have their devil magic. They keep on finding ways to win games they have no business winning, and arguably they had a business winning this Chargers game by a lot, but it's because they won it off a doinking in that the devil magic came up. Well, in this game, this is a very easily a trap game for Kansas City. You see, unless Jameis Winston plays like Jameis Winston, he throws a lot of interceptions, in theory, it should be tough for KC to stay in this game. But again, it's KC, their devil magic against Jameis Winston. I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning this game. I expect at least one interception from Jameis, and I expect the Chiefs to pull off some kind of craziness to be able to win this game. It's the Chiefs going against the Browns. It's built to be a crazy game, so I'd have the Chiefs winning in said crazy game. Next up, the Cincinnati Bengals at 5-8 and 5-point favorites make the trip to Tennessee, who are 3-10. Tennessee had a very, 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 very bad loss to Jacksonville last week. And I say all those varies, not because Jacksonville is a bad team and Tennessee is a good team, but because that game was so bad, it might as well have just been a bad game entirely and not exist. It felt like a game that belonged on Thursday Night Football in the Color Rush uniforms. But that's just how Tennessee and Jacksonville are this season. Cincinnati finally got a big-time win that they've been looking for in a good Joe Burrow game. I expect this to be able to rejuvenate the team a bit. The defense played well. Yes, it was against Cooper Rush, but they're playing Will Levis this week. So, should be a really similar showing for this defense. And Joe Burrow, he's not Mac Jones. He's a lot better. The Cincinnati offense is not Jacksonville's offense. They're a lot better. Tennessee's defense is going to struggle in this game, I expect, in some capacity. So I do have the Cincinnati Bengals winning this game, and they're a sneaky team. Probably no real shot they get in, but they're going to look to play spoiler these last 4 weeks. I think they'll be able to do it. Give me Cincinnati. The Washington Commanders at 8-5 and 7.5-point favorites make the trip to New Orleans, who are 5-8. The Saints are also a team that had potential this season, but A, couldn't capitalize off of it earlier on in the season, and B, have been riddled with injuries at this point. So they're just kind of there. It doesn't feel like they can be a spoiler team yet anymore, but it also doesn't feel like they're a complete tanking team because they're still 5-8. Meanwhile, Washington is slowly losing their spot in the playoff picture. They currently sit at the 7th seed in the NFC, and they're looking to stay into it. If they collapse that badly this season, it ain't going to look good on that front office. It ain't going to look good on Cliff Kingsbury specifically. but this is a good matchup for them, I do think. Jalen Daniels has been a really solid quarterback this season, nowhere near the level of play as he had earlier on in the season, but still playing at a high level. This Washington defense also playing at a good level. They're coming off of their bye this week, so I think that's going to help out this team to get back on the right track for this final stretch. And I do have Washington still making the playoffs, but that's for a video for another day. I do have the Commanders winning this game. I expect their defense to play well. I expect the offense to play well. I just expect Washington to be a better team in this game because on paper and what we've seen this season, they are just a better, more consistent team. So give me the Commanders. Next up, the largest point spread of the week. The Baltimore Ravens at 8-5 and 14.5-point favorites make the trip to MetLife Stadium. They play the New York Giants, who are 2-11. And I believe the reports are Drew Lock is expected to play if he is healthy, which I don't know how to feel because Drew Lock did not throw the ball well at all last week. Meanwhile, Baltimore is Baltimore. They're a really, really good team and have Derrick Henry, the potential MVP. They're also coming off of their bye week, which is a crazy thing that so many teams had a bye week in week 14, but that's the new NFL, I guess. Lamar Jackson is looking to just continue to exemplify his great season so far. Only 3 interceptions this year, and not a single one of them I don't think are his fault. But at the end of the day, you still have interceptions. You still have to play. You still have to play the game. But it's against the New York Giants. They're tanking clearly. They want either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. I think they'll be happy with either. They're in a race for the number 1 overall pick with the Las Vegas Raiders. So I do have the Baltimore Ravens winning this game. I do think it's going to be closer than the 14.5, though, just because that is a lot of points for an NFL game. And for as bad as the Giants are, I do think that the Ravens are going to spend the first half kind of taking them for granted. And then the second half is when they'll start to dominate again, but it won't be by enough. I'd saying 14 a lot is a half. I think it is a little bit too much, but we'll see on Sunday. Nonetheless, give me the Ravens. The Dallas Cowboys at 5-8 make the trip to Carolina, who are 3-10 and 2.5-point favorites. Dallas had a good stretch going. They beat Washington, they beat New York, but then they lose to Cincinnati on Monday Night Football in the Simpsons game. So there's that. Here's the other thing with Dallas. For as good as they've been playing, it's been a lot of the defense putting in the work. The offense isn't doing a lot. And now they're about to be going against a kind of a new look Panthers team. It's weird having this view in the Panthers because at the end of the day, they are 3-10, but they have been a much better team these past few weeks than they were earlier on in the season. Since Bryce Young has came back from being benched, these Panthers have been in every single game. They have been looking really, really good. They just need to be able to put the pieces together and win one of these games to get off to try and finish the season on the right track. And I think they'll be able to. I have the Panthers winning this game. I don't trust Dallas. I haven't trusted Dallas for a while. They're a very disappointing and underperforming team this season. In Carolina, they've had close games against Kansas City, close games against Tampa Bay, close games against Philadelphia. They are playing so many great teams close. Eventually, they're going to put it all together and play a full 60 minutes to get a win. This, I think, is going to be the week that happens, so give me the Panthers. The coin toss game of the week, a game that you can really pick either way, and I wouldn't blame you. The New York Jets at 3-10 and 3-point favorites travel to Jacksonville, who were also 3-10. This game is not going to be, I mean, it's not going to be good for one of two reasons. Either this is going to be a blowout by the Jets, and they're going to just run away with it, or this is going to be a very similar game to Jacksonville and Tennessee last week. So, here's the thing with all of that. Mac Jones playing is in Jacksonville. Again, he's not been playing well. Jacksonville as a whole has not been playing well this season. A very disappointing season. I'm very curious on what their offseason is going to look like, but that is for when the offseason comes around. Meanwhile, the Jets are in a very similar boat, but honestly, you can exemplify their disappointment that they've had in this season. They were expected to be a playoff team, Super Bowl contenders, the whole 9 yards, and they were eliminated from the playoffs last week in a very tough overtime loss. So, I do have the Jets bouncing back and winning this game, but it's only because they're playing Jacksonville. I do not trust the Jets still. I just do not trust Jacksonville even more. It's going to be a rough game, but if the Jets don't win this one, I don't know what their future looks like, so give me the Jets. Next up, the Miami Dolphins at 6-7 make the trip over to Houston, who are 8-5 and 3-point favorites. So again, the 3-point favorite line for Houston, I'm not really looking at too seriously as the home team by nature gains 3 points in a point spread. So really, this is an even game, it's being said, which I kind of agree with. Miami has been playing really well the past few weeks, even in their loss to Green Bay. Tua was playing well. The offense tried their best to get him into this game. It was the special teams that ruined that game, and then the defense on top of it, eventually just not being able to get the job done. In part because the offense couldn't, in part because the one drive the offense had was a bunch of mental mistakes made. But last week, it was a rough showing for Miami, but they came back in the fourth quarter, forced overtime, and got the win. Tua looked fantastic in both end of half drives and the overtime drive, and even on the opening drive, he played a really well game. The defense, did not show up how I wanted them to, but they did at the end, and that's all that matters. You get the win. Houston's coming off of their bye week, and they have been a team this season that has been very inconsistent and are potentially approaching a collapse similar to Tennessee 2 years ago and Jacksonville last year. We'll see how that all unfolds. But this is a good test for both teams. Houston trying to make sure they still win the division and can compete come playoff time, and Miami to keep their season alive and sneak into the playoffs. I have Miami winning this game. I am a Dolphins fan. All I will say is if Miami's going to lose this game, it's most likely going to be through the legs of Joe Mixon. Similar to how I was scared Josh Jacobs was going to run all over Miami on Thanksgiving. I am scared Joe Mixon is going to run all over Miami on Sunday. But we'll see. Nonetheless, give me the Dolphins to win. The Indianapolis Colts at 6-7 make the trip to the Mile High City. They play the Denver Broncos, who are 8-5 and 3.5-point favorites. This is going to be an interesting game. Indianapolis has looked better the past few weeks since the whole situation with Anthony Richardson, him getting the bench for Joe Flacco the second time. It's been a weird past few weeks, but they've been looking better. They're getting good wins, and they're just showing resilience. Denver is looking like an incredible team and a team that could be a Cinderella story, kind of similar to Houston last year. But that's the thing with it. They look similar to Houston last year. Houston last year struggled against the Colts quite a bit, but they still got the win, similar to the Texans this year. I do have the Broncos winning this game. I like what I'm seeing from Bo Nix. I like what I'm seeing from that defense, especially having 2 pick sixes the last time out was a good one. They're coming off of their bye week and looking to just continue to solidify playoff spots. They have a pretty tough 2 games coming up. They have the Colts on Sunday, then the Chargers on Thursday Night Football right after. It's going to be an interesting sequence for this Broncos team, and the Colts are going to be a good test because of their mobility that Anthony Richardson has. But nonetheless, I have the Broncos winning this game. The game of the week sees the Buffalo Bills at 10-3 travel to Detroit, Michigan, who are 12-1. The Lions, 2.5-point favorites. Game of the week, game of the season, potentially. This is going to be a fantastic game. Buffalo looking to bounce back after a very, very, very tough loss to the Rams. I mean, Josh Allen secured MVP in a losing effort with his performance. And I know some people have been saying that, the rushing touchdowns aren't that impressive because most of them came from QB sneaks or short yardage situations. I don't care. It is still very, very unheard of for a quarterback to have 6 total touchdowns in the game. And even if you don't want to, and even with the touchdowns being from close yardage, he still had 82 yards on the day. So you remove 2 of those yards and 2 of those touchdowns. He had 80 yards and a touchdown rushing on the day. Josh Allen played that game incredibly well. It don't matter how he got his rushing touchdowns. Look at Josh Allen. Not Josh Allen. Look at Jalen Hurts. But Detroit is a very different team. They have a better defense than the Rams do. They have a better offense than the Rams do. It's going to be a very interesting showing in Detroit. The Lions are a very, very good team when playing indoors. If this game was in Buffalo, I would have a different opinion on it. I have the Lions winning this game. I think the indoors of this game, I think the toughness of this Lions team and this mentality and the way they play is going to mess with Buffalo a bit, especially Buffalo's defense, who are rattled right now because of the showing they had against the Rams last week. So give me the Lions to win. If it weren't for Buffalo Detroit, this next game would be my game of the week. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers at 10-3, making the cross-state trip to play the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 11-2 and 5-point favorites. Philly this season has been a very run-focused team, and that's not to say that the passing game isn't or doesn't have the pieces to be great. It's just that they just haven't been great this season. Jalen Hurts is dealing with something. Something is off with him. I don't fully know what. He's just not seeing the field the same way he did last year. But when you have Saquon Barkley, you can get away with it because Saquon Barkley is going to give you a lot of production, a lot of yards. Well, the issue is they're playing the Steelers defense this week. A defense who is a very good defense, especially against the run. So, can the Steelers defense step up against Saquon Barkley and make Philly one-dimensional through the air? And if they can, it's going to be a very tough game for the Eagles to win. Meanwhile, the Steelers offense against that Eagles defense is going to be a fun story to watch and an interesting game in total to figure out how it plays out. I do have the Steelers to win this game. I think the Steelers would be successful in getting the Eagles offense one-dimensional, and then from that point, we can expect the Steelers secondary to have a relatively good day, as they are still a defense secondarily wise that I like. I like what they have in that back front. I do like the Steelers defense as a whole, and I have the Steelers to win this game. The New England Patriots at 3-10 make their trip over to Arizona, who are 6-7 and 5.5 point favorites. The Patriots have been a very quiet team this season. They've had their moments of Drake May playing really well and thus getting the attention online and in the media, but for the most part, they're just the Patriots. No one expected them to be good, no one expected to be talking about them, so they're not good, and no one's really talking about them. Meanwhile, the Cardinals had 2 chances in the past 3 weeks to solidify a division spot for them, and they lost both of them, both to Seattle. So now they're on the come. They're playing catch up. They're trying to get back to that level. They're gonna need Seattle to lose a few games here and there, but first they need to focus on taking care of business against New England. It's at home. I do have the Cardinals winning this game. I just think that Seattle has a better defense than what Arizona is accustomed to this season, and New England's defense is a good defense, but they do struggle a bit against the ground, specifically quarterback runs, and also they do struggle a bit against the pass. Christian Gonzalez is their primary secondary player, and the people behind him, while still good, especially Kyle Duggar, for the most part, it's still not a great secondary to be going up against the players that Arizona has, and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride, and I know someone else I'm missing. It's going to be a tough showing for this New England defense, so give me the Cardinals to win. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 7-6 make the cross country trip as they play the Los Angeles Chargers, who are 8-5 and 3-point favorites. The Buccaneers coming off of a tight win against the Raiders. I say tight win because that game should have been a much larger victory for the Buccaneers and ended up being. Meanwhile, the Chargers, again, that doinking in loss against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. It's a tough loss to have, but it's going to be an interesting show. And J.K. Dobbins is still out. I'm not sure the status on Ladd McConkey, but if he's out, I do not like the Chargers' chances. And even then, even with him playing, the lack of a ground game that the Chargers have scares me, especially going against Tampa, who have a ground game and have a passing game offensively. So I do have the Buccaneers winning this game. I think Tampa's defense will be able to do a fine job purely focusing against this Chargers passing game, and which is a very big thing. If you can only focus against playing against Justin Herbert's arm, you're in a good spot. Meanwhile, this Tampa offense, yes, they're going against a really good Chargers defense, but they've had their moments of falter this season, and I feel like Tampa can be able to take advantage of it. The main thing is I need Baker Mayfield to play a clean game, and I think he'll be able to, so give me the Buccaneers. Sunday Night Football is the Green Bay Packers at 9-4 and 3-point favorites, making the trip to Seattle at 8-5. The Packers already once this season has exercised some demons with that win against the 49ers, and now they're looking to exercise some more with the fact that the failed Mary is still there, and the entirety of the history between the Packers and the Seahawks are there as well. The Packers are a good team, and they did just lose to the Lions, but the Lions are a lot better, not a lot better, but they're a better team, and it was still a really tight and contested game. So like what I saw from the Packers. The Seahawks, a good divisional win against the Cardinals, but at the same time, I mean, Seattle feels like Seattle is missing a piece here and there to truly be that great team that they can be. They have the potential, they have the workings, but they're missing something, and Green Bay will be able to take advantage of that something. I have the Packers winning this game. I expect a great bounce back win, and they're close. I believe the Packers are close to clinching a playoff spot. Pretty sure they only need to win this game and one other, or in 2 of the last 4. I think they get the job done here in Seattle, and they exercise some of those demons that they have. The first of 2 Monday Night Football games sees the Chicago Bears at 4-9 make the trip to Minnesota, who are 11-2 with 6.5-point favorites. The last time these 2 teams played, it went to overtime. It was a really good and contested game, But the difference is this game is going to be played in Minnesota. And when the Vikings are at home this season, it feels like they're a lot better team than when they're on the road. And Sam Darnold ends up playing better. And also with the way that the Bears played under Thomas Brown last week against the 49ers, I do not like their chances in this. I have the Vikings winning this game. I am scared for Bears fans that this game might be a complete blowout and Sam Darnold might throw another 5-touchdown game. I don't think it'll be that drastic, but I do think it'll be a great game for Minnesota to have a dominant victory over a team that gave him troubles earlier in the season. So I do have the Vikings winning this one. The final game of the week is the Atlanta Falcons at 6-7 and 4.5-point favorites, making a trip to the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 2-11. Raiders are going to be starting Desmond Ridder this week because of just the amount of injuries that they have on that team, which does not get talked about enough about this team this season. But they are banged up a lot, especially offensively. 2 running backs out, 2 quarterbacks out. It's a tough season for the Raiders, but they're in position to get their guy of the future, which was kind of the plan this season, it felt like. Atlanta needs to have a good game, especially Kirk Cousins. He needs to have a good game. He has not been playing well the past 4 weeks. They've completely lost hold of the division that they had a clear path forward in, and now they're trying to bounce back. I have the Falcons winning this game. This is a perfect matchup for Kirk Cousins to have a redemption game. He's not been playing well. He needs to just keep it cool and trust Bijan Robinson, trust Kyle Pitts as the 2 main check down options. You can throw Tyler Algier in there as well. But he needs to just take a step back, not force anything, and play a clean game like we know he can. I hate that Kirk has been playing this poorly, but it's just the nature of the NFL. Eventually, it gets to a point where the game feels like it's passing you by, and it might be that time for Kirk. I don't think so. If he has a clean game in this one, I think he'll be right back to the swing of things, which could be a good sign. I do have the Falcons winning this game. Well, there you have it. My predictions for Week 15 of the NFL season. Thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate you. Subscribe, leave a like, comment down below. You know the whole drill. And I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.